Welcome to the Season 3, Episode 1 edition of the Dawg Talk Podcast by the IndyStar. I'm Assistant Sports Editor Aaron Ferguson, joined by our insider on all things Butler, Akeem Glaspie. We are here this is Monday morning, October 20th, and we are here to break down everything we saw Friday night at Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Notre Dame won a rather exciting 77-76 finish against Butler, where it really came down to the final minutes. And I think there are two things that I think were really fascinating about the exhibition that had very little to do with what was even on the court. One was the crowd. I mean, that was a great crowd for a Friday night. It was my first, I'll say, true Hinkle Fieldhouse experience, because I had been there for TBT games over the summer, but that place was packed with everything you could do on a Friday night in a game that doesn't really count toward anything. I thought it was great. Obviously, you have a lot of new players. You have some local-ish players on Notre Dame who are back in town as well. And then the other thing is how much they mixed and matched lineups. Notre Dame coach Micah Shrewsbury talked about it during his press conference, just how much they wanted to get different looks at lineups. And he and Thad had a conversation, probably several conversations before the game, just about how they wanted to structure the exhibition, which is a little bit different now that it's public facing, as opposed to secret scrimmages where you could put people and manipulate game-like situations as much as you want. But both coaches talked about how great the crowd was. And yeah, it led to a lot of different looks that we got to see from Butler. It was just a really fascinating evening of basketball, one that fortunately turned into a competitive game down the stretch, and both teams were able to simulate what that looked like, trying to close out a win for Notre Dame, or for Butler trying to fight back from I think it was 16 points, maybe it was even more, deficit at one point to potentially win the game. And so, Akeem, I'll throw it over to you. What, as you were watching this game and kind of just manifested itself from that big deficit, especially in the first half, I thought it was going to be a runaway for the Irish, and then to fight back into it. What was kind of going through your mind just throughout the game?
Yeah, so I guess when they got down, it's kind of like, here we go again, because that plagued Butler a lot last year, just getting down to these big leads and then the game kind of getting away from them. But I think, them fighting back, even in an exhibition setting, that's a positive sign. That's something that they didn't always do. Like those 16-point deficits could easily turn into, 20-point deficits. So to see them fight back was encouraging, and it kind of all coincided with Jamie Kaiser. He took only one shot in the first half, but then he really kind of took over the game at parts in the second half, and we're going to get to it later. But his scoring ability is something that they'll very much need. So just seeing them fight back was encouraging, and that's kind of one of the main things I took away, because that game was close. They had a potential look to tie it or cut it to one with a three-pointer by Evan Hayward, and just the way that they continued to fight back was a positive thing to see.
Yeah, I think part of what helped Kaiser was they had no big men. I mean, they were playing undersized for much of that game because Johan Traore, the transfer from SMU among several other schools during his journey, suffered an injury there. I want to say it was early first half or mid first half. Was going up for an offensive rebound, had clear position, and was kind of undercut and fell really hard, it looked like, on his side. But did we ever get an update on his injury?
Yeah, so Thad said after the game that it was his neck that was what was bothering him. So it looked like he kind of hit his back, and the neck is what was kind of I guess it's sore. I'll have to get an update, sometime this week. But a neck injury was kind of what kept him out. And who knows? Maybe if it's a regular season game, he comes back in the game. But he left early, and that kind of forced them to make some adjustments. You saw some Jack McCaffrey at the 5, some Michael Ajayi at the 5. So you're right, they were able to play small, which, I mean, they don't. I hope they probably don't want to do that too much. But then they also had Kevin Enzi, the international signee. So they go from 2 centers to 1, and that was. I mean, I guess that's a good lesson to learn during an exhibition game and not Big East play. So It doesn't seem like Johan suffered a long-term injury, but I'll have to get an update later this week.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit during the game about Drayton Jones, and he was efficient. I mean, he made both his shots and made both of his free throws. He had 6 points and 5 boards in 21 minutes. I guess just what did you think about him? And I know you liked him a lot. You've been to, I think, 6 practices here before this exhibition. So you liked him a lot coming in. He showed some of his efficiency, and I think he also has maybe just some other surprises that you saw throughout the game. But what did you just see from him as possibly the Butler center moving forward?
Yeah, so I guess just him getting the start was interesting to see. That was kind of the one position that I was maybe thought would be kind of in flux between Johan and Drayton, because Johan has more experience, but yeah, I think Drayton is kind of the more talented player, and just the energy that he brings. That's something that, again, I've noticed throughout practice. And he did look a little gassed towards in the second half, but again, they were down, technically 2 bigs with Johan and Kevin Enzi not playing. So yeah, but I think he is a Big East center, I believe, kind of a two-way player that they hadn't had, because like in Andre Screen, he was great in the low post on offense, but definitely had some deficiencies on defense. And Bowden Kapke was a talented shooter, but not really built to guard in the low post, especially come Big East play. So in Drayton and Johan, they have 2 centers that are capable of being two-way centers. I believe Johan didn't really get a chance to show it, but again, Johan can finish around the basket, and Drayton can finish around the basket. He's very physical down low, and I'm told he can shoot. I don't know how many jumpers they want him to shoot, but I mean, he has touch around the rim, and he's good feel for defense. So I think they've definitely upgraded down low heading into this season.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that was really apparent there in the first half is Finley Bizjack is quite the scorer. I think it was. I had the times written down and I don't anymore. But at one point, he was 3 for 3, all 3-pointers. He had 9 points. The rest of the team was 1 for 13. 1 for 13. And this was like 10 or so minutes into the exhibition in the first half. And it's like, okay, this team, can anybody score other than Finley Bizjack? We know what Finley's going to do. We know what he's capable of doing. He can get to the rim if he needs to, but he's a standout shooter, and he's not afraid to shoot from anywhere. I was really impressed with him and how he came out with a little fire. But is anyone else going to step up and help him?
Yeah, so Thad kind of alluded to this after the game. I mean, they look like a team that was playing together for the first time. They have 11 new players, and then when you dive even further, I mean, outside of Johan, how many of them have even played other Power 4, Power 5 conference level teams? I mean, even Jalen Jackson, he has a lot of experience, but he's coming from Purdue Fort Wayne. Jahmyl Butler is coming from Drexel. Jamie Kaiser, he has Maryland. He has Big Ten experience, but he sat out an entire year. So, and Michael Ajayi has obviously a very talented player coming from Gonzaga, but he started his career at the junior college level. So he was kind of he was definitely trying to do too much, kind of out of control, and they need efficient scoring from him. I don't know how many shots that necessarily will be, but they need definitely for him to do less, I think, on offense and kind of rely on his energy and athletic ability. So in terms of that second score, it kind of, I'm assuming it's going to be Jamie Kaiser, and he just kind of needed to get into the flow of the game. Like I said, he only took 1 shot in the first half, but in the second half, he kind of showed what I've saw all off season, and just his scoring ability and that reputation as a knockdown shooter. And if he gets confident, that will be, that'll be great for the team, because they'll need him to score. Yeah, Finley is like you said, he's a capable scorer, a great shooter, and everyone knows what he can do. But you're right, just more aggression from Jamie Kaiser is what I want to see, and I do think he'll end up being that number 2. But yeah, and Jalen Jackson is kind of, again, he's coming back from a dislocated ankle. And he was on a minutes restriction, didn't play in the second half. So between Jalen and Jamie and Michael, they could all play better, and they'll just have to play with more cohesion, because Jalen, as a point guard, that's kind of his job, is to make sure everyone's kind of in flow and running the offense. And we saw once he left the game, the point guard position was, a struggle. So a lot of kind of factors kind of went into the offense not looking great. But I do think Jamie, Jalen, and Michael can be competent scorers.
Yeah, I think last year what we saw was Butler had 3 guys who could kind of go off at any time that they relied on a lot for scoring, with Jahmyl Telfort, Pierre Brooks, and Patrick McCaffrey. This year, I almost wonder if it's going to be Finley and then just kind of everybody else pitches in as best they can. Like, I agree. I think Kaiser's going to be that second option, but I don't know who the third is. Like, I think it could be someone different on any given night.
Yeah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like football coaches say, they ride the hot hands. And in this offense, I know Alex Barlow, the assistant coach, they run a lot of NBA sets, and that's about, optimizing your matchups. If they feel like they have an advantage in the low post, maybe it's a Drayton Jones night. If they feel they have like an undersized front court that Michael Ajayi can exploit, maybe it's a Michael Ajayi night. But I do feel like Finley and Jamie have to be the 1A, 1B if Butler wants to have success.
Finley, Friday night, 16 points in 21 minutes, 5 of 8 shooting. Both Jamie Kaiser and Afioso Eliogu Elobor also had 12 points, and he was 7 of 10 from the free throw line. So a lot of his was getting downhill and getting to the rim and drawing fouls. So I think that shows to one degree at which it's going to be a versatile effort. I think, I don't know, if you were to put a number on Finley's points per game this year, where do you think he ends up at the end of the season?
Yeah, I would say like 18 to 20, because if this was an actual game, Finley's going for 30. Like he wouldn't have come out the game. They would have been running so many sets for Finley. He was feeling it. If that was an actual game, there's a good chance he's scoring 25 to 30 points. So again, if he's shooting 5 from 8 from the field and 4 from 7 from 3, if he's making basically 50% of his 3-pointers, he could be making 5 threes a game. That's 15 points right there. So yeah, 20 might be selling him short, but I do think Finley, well, that's a little bit of a hyperbole, but yeah, 18 to 20 is definitely within his kind of scoring capability. And they'll need another double-digit scorer because they can't just rely on Finley. So yeah, I think 18 to 20 points is definitely within the range of possibilities.
I think you hit on an important part about Kaiser and just his reacclimation to college basketball, which is kind of weird to say. Like, he was practicing and rehabbing last year, obviously. But do you know, because I do you know the last time he played in an actual college basketball game?
It would have had to have been, March of 2023?
2024, but yes, 2024? It's been a year and a half. I mean, you haven't played against actual competition in a year and a half. Like, of course he only took 1 shot in the first half. He's still trying to find his rhythm and just his skill set. And then I think we saw him come alive there in the second half, and he looked a lot more confident. Like, it's hard to describe, but you could just see it.
Yeah, no, and he took exception to my question. I was like, "Oh, why did you play better in the second half?" He's like, "Well, I only took 1 shot." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. You played more aggressive in the second half." And I think, again, that's him just, you're right, finding his flow, finding his rhythm, and he showed. I mean, he let it fly with confidence. He said they came at him with their hands down, and they won't be doing that too much more, because he made them pay when they didn't close out hard on him. So you're right. If he gets confident, he could be the leading scorer of his team. Maybe it's not Finley, but I think and what he didn't show was his ability to attack the rim. I mean, he's a solid frame 6'6" kind of guard forward, and he's explosive. Like, he can offensive rebound. He can be a high energy guy too. I mean, no, I don't know if anyone's as explosive as Ifosa, and we can get to him later. But Jamie he's not just a shooter. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't care if he can shoot, but I don't want to pigeonhole him as a shooter. So he hasn't even shown his complete skill set. So I think he's kind of primed for a breakout, and that was kind of one of my most important takeaways from this exhibition.
Kaiser was 3 for 4 on 3-pointers. He had 12 points and 5 rebounds, also 3 for 6 at the free throw line in 20 minutes. He did foul out. Again, I think you hear coaches talk about this. I'm going back to my high school reporting days of like a decade ago, but like you always hear coaches talk about needing to get their basketball legs under them. I just don't know that he was there yet, and you kind of saw that a little bit more in the second half. He was finding that fluidity. So I'm really curious to see what he looks like against Indiana State on October 29th, the next exhibition, before the regular season begins. But I do think there was another key here, especially in the first half. Butler has a point guard. Jalen Jackson has come in. He's taken that position. 3 assists to 1 turnover. He was only 1 for 4 shooting in 11 minutes, but the offense I thought it looks pretty good with them. Shooting aside, other than Finley in the first 10 minutes, what were your takeaways from just watching Jalen run the offense? And then when he was out, what seemed to shift?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say the offense looked great. I mean, again, seeing them in practice, their motion, their flow offense, it was out of sorts. Like you just on some of the concepts and the reads that they have to make on the fly, like that wasn't very crisp. But again, it's an exhibition game. It's their first kind of time playing against another team, so that will improve. The flow of the offense will look better. But no, Jalen he's a true point guard. He's very strong upper body, and I don't think he really showed his explosiveness and his ability to get downhill. Like when he has another gear that we haven't really seen in terms of a player with the ball in his hands, and so I'm excited to see that. His shooting, I mean, if he's a capable shooter, that'll be pretty much all they need between Jahmyl and Finley. But I think his ability to create and him getting downhill will just open up the offense so much more. You're right. He can handle the ball and limit turnovers, that was what did not happen when he left the game. But it was tough. They put freshman Stink Robinson in a really tough position. He's playing against, a high major team in Notre Dame, coming from high school. I believe he had 4 turnovers, 3 fouls, and that'll take a time to adjust. Putting basically a high school kid in there against grown men, that's a lot to ask. And this will be a huge learning experience for Stink. They really threw him in the fire, and as long as he continues to improve and doesn't take a step backwards, that's what they'll need for him. But I think Jahmyl Butler, he's a really talented ball handler. Jalen, even again, Finley, he played a lot of point guard last year, Jahmyl. So in a perfect world, Stink is not your backup point guard this year. I mean, he's capable of playing, but I mean, he played 17 minutes. I don't think he's playing 17 minutes come the regular season, but they threw him in the fire, and he needs to continue to grow from this and learn how to protect the ball against talented teams.
Yeah. I should clarify. I think it's a great development that they have a point guard. I don't think their offense looked great, but I do think it looked different. And that's the part that looked great to me is like last year, I just thought it was so much you had Jahmyl as like that point forward, and he did a good job in that role, but I don't know. I guess I'm just used to, I don't know, a little bit more traditional in that sense. But yeah, anyway, I think, Xavier Robinson, the freshman from Lawrence North, he's listed at 6'2", and I think one of the things that stood out to me is like Notre Dame, they're obviously playing in the ACC. They have Jalen Harrelson, who's a possible one and done NBA draft pick, Marcus Burton, who we all know what he can do, just an explosive scorer. And so it's like, okay, these are the guys you're going against, not so much Harrelson one-on-one, but this is the type of team that you're going against. Like what is it that Butler is supposed to show when they don't necessarily have that height? And I do think you saw some of their athleticism take over. Like Xavier, to his credit, kept doing what he does. And Notre Dame would collapse the lane. It'd be 5 guys getting in the paint to take away those driving lanes. There were 2 plays, I think, that really stuck out to me. And one was Xavier did get downhill, and he had a reverse layup and used the rim to shield himself from a potential shot blocker. And then there was a pass also that I was just like, whoa, okay, that's some next level stuff. So I do think he was sped up a little bit. The high school game to a college game, you see it as a fan, you see it as a writer. I've never experienced it because I was never good enough to play basketball, even at the high school level. But there's something to be said for finding his footing in that. I think defensively, there were also just some growth opportunities for him. But yeah, I think he's not going to play that much this year. Not that many minutes, I should say. I do think there's a role for him on this team. He's quick. I think if you want someone who can really push the ball, he's got an opportunity to do that. Also, just within the role of the offense, like we saw last year, Finley, especially in the back half of the season towards the postseason, he really started sharing the ball a lot more as kind of like that lead guard. And I'm curious if they don't just like put the ball in his hands when Jalen Jackson's not on the floor and he gets back to some of that. Now it's two different rhythms, right? You go from being the off-ball scorer to having the ball in your hands more. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they want. I mean, obviously, throughout the course of a play or in transition, anyone can bring the ball up the court, anyone can initiate the offense. But I think in a perfect world, Finley is off the ball more than he's on the ball. So even with the second unit, I would imagine it's like you see a Jahmyl Butler as the primary point guard with the second unit, and then maybe you'll see some Stink, but. Yeah, in a perfect world, because again, you just saw how good Finley is in catching situations. Like you want other people creating for him, so him being on the ball just takes away a big part of their offense. So yeah, maybe you'll see Stink kind of working in more in the second half, but right now I feel like you kind of have to see Jahmyl Butler as the primary point guard with that second unit, and then kind of Finley filling in situationally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to pivot over to the freshmen because highest ranked recruiting class coming in the program's history. We've talked about Xavier Robinson a little bit. I mean, you've kind of said it earlier. I think Afosu is going to be a difference maker for this team, potentially even like that sixth man type role or seventh man. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes. Just based on what he showed Friday night.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough when I'm at practice and you see two different sides of players. Like you'll see, like when I'm at practice, he was on the ball a lot. He was playing a lot of point guard. So I feel like he might be working in as that, or that's kind of their plan for him, is to be to move in or kind of grow into being a secondary ball handler. But once you get in the game, that athleticism just takes over. Like he's not really thinking, he's not worried about really running the point guard. He's just crashing and putting on a show athletically. So you're right. I was pleasantly surprised with what he showed and the free throw shooting and the athletic ability. And just, yeah, I think he will kind of carve out a role because I wasn't exactly sure what his role would be because, again, when I'm watching practice, he's on the ball a lot and it's an adjustment. Making him a point guard would be, it doesn't seem to be natural. He can handle the ball, but in terms of playmaking and decision-making, there's kind of room for growth. But, again, some players are practice players, and when the lights come on, some players just kind of shine. And you also that I'm not surprised because, again, with his international experience playing with Team Canada, he's not going to be fazed by this type of stage. And Micah Shrewsbury alluded to that because he's an assistant on Team USA, and he was familiar with Tifosa as well. So just that was a pleasant surprise, and I think he'll be a valuable role player for Butler. Jack McCaffrey, again, he was playing the 5, which you don't really want to see him playing the 5, but he looks confident shooting the ball. He's a very skilled player. He's more athletic than you would assume. It's just watching some of him going between the legs with dunks and pregame warm-ups. I was like, okay, I didn't know you had that in you, but he's kind of a 3-4-5. Well, in theory, he can play the 5, but he'll be a talented wing option. And Jackson Keith, he was the one that I expected him to kind of be that primary role player, one of the first players off the bench, but he was the last player off the bench. And I don't, maybe they're hiding him a little bit. Maybe they don't want other teams to know what they have, because if I had to just base it on what I've seen throughout the offseason, Jackson was the one with the kind of the best offseason. Jackson was the one that showed the most kind of promise, I would say, out of all the freshmen that I've seen. And again, in the game setting, he didn't really show that. But so I always felt that Jackson would be the one that would have the most impact as a freshman, even amongst Efosa and Stink. But again, when the lights come on, maybe Efosa just has another gear that I wasn't aware of. But I do think all the freshmen, if they kind of embrace their roles, they can contribute to the team this year.
I think Efosa, you kind of touched on it, but he was playing this summer at the FIBA Under-19 World Cup. Same one that produced standout freshman guard Omer Meyer was playing in with Israel. I remember Fran Fraschilla was just like loving Efosa's game. And there were a lot of tweets about Efosa did this, Efosa did that, but like his athleticism was really on display. He's a 6'6" wing. He's from Markham, Ontario. But I think, yes, the athleticism and the explosiveness that he showed really helped him get to the free throw line. I mentioned it earlier, 7 for 10 from the free throw line. But kind of in that secondary ball handler role, he had 4 assists to 1 turnover. I mean, that's pretty great efficiency, and you would take that, especially in 19 minutes, which maybe that is something a little bit similar to what his role will end up being. I don't know if you caught this, but there was one stoppage that they had. He was driving toward the lane, and he got stuffed by the rim, trying to throw down like a windmill dunk. And I was just like, man, could you imagine how loud that place would have gone if he threw that thing down? I don't know. This team looks a lot more athletic, looks a lot more I want to say multiple, as it's maybe not the best word, multiple or versatile. Like, it just seems like this team can do a lot more this year. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch on both ends of the court as a result. Any last thoughts from what we saw Friday night?
No, but you're right that Efosa has a secondary playmaker. That is going to be a huge development in his game. And I know from watching practice, that's kind of a role they want to groom him to. I don't know how quickly he's going to take it over, but you're right. 4 assists against Notre Dame, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's showing the promise that they have in terms of him being able to create for the players. And yeah, that's a valuable skill set to have in terms of a high energy, high effort ball handler. I mean, his shooting, again, like, I don't know. He kind of bounced in a 3-pointer late in the game, but shooting that's another skill he needs to develop. But the skills he has right now is just a very valuable asset to have. So I'm excited to see how he progresses.
And he potentially is now on the Boston Celtics draft radar down the road. I think the cool part about the switch in college basketball, where you had these secret scrimmages that were closed to everybody becoming exhibitions for fans to come in and watch, was you had Brad Stevens there, the legendary Butler coach who led the program to the 2 Final Four runs. His son Brady plays for Notre Dame and actually closed out the win at the free throw line for the Irish. But what that really presents is an opportunity to honor those Final Four teams that were both on hand. And it allows Brad to be there because the Celtics season, yes, they're in the preseason, but it hasn't really started yet in earnest. And so I thought that was just a really cool moment to have everybody there. You saw Gordon Hayward there. Gordon Hayward, who's in a new role as an advisor to this program. What do you think Butler is going to get out of having Gordon on board as a resource?
Yeah, so I think it helps in terms of branding and visibility and marketability, that the most, noticeable or kind of prestigious alum of Butler basketball is a visible presence with around the program. Like he's someone the players can actually talk to. He's someone that he can give advice to them and just help them with his experience and answer any questions that they may have. I mean, he said he wants to be a voice to the players. Like if the coaching staff is saying something that maybe it's not clicking, like he can break it down on a player level that maybe the coaches can't, and he just kind of wants to be that voice. And again, Grant Leindecker, the AD, kind of just he kind of confirmed that you're right, from PR, it's obviously great to have him involved with the program, but they want to use him. They want to have him be a valuable resource in terms of like player development and player evaluation. So just having having a basketball mind like Gordon Hayward around the game, that can only be a positive. So. Yeah, and because you don't want that part of Butler to fade away. You're right; it was good for the Final Four team to be on hand, but that was 15 years ago. So the current group of recruits, I mean, some of them may, like, if you're class of 2028, you were just being born when Butler was making those national championship runs. So to remind people and to keep that in the forefront of the new players' minds is great, because you don't want that to fade away. Like our esteemed former editor, Matt Glenette, said, like, I use a football school now because IU's basketball glory days were so far in the past that it may not be relevant to current recruits. Now, I don't know how true that is, especially if you grow up in Indiana, but, for maybe if you grew up in California, you might not even know that Butler is in Indianapolis. So, but you might know who Gordon Hayward is. So having Gordon be an active part of the program moving forward is definitely positive.
That Butler run was like peak NCAA tournament memory for me, even though I'm not from Indiana. Like, I still remember where I was when he took that half-court shot against Duke and it rimmed out. And, like, I remember the reaction. I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings. I remember the reaction of everyone who was in there. Like, it was just insane. I mean, an iconic March Madness moment. Sure, it didn't go Butler's way, but, man, what a run. Like, I think – I don't remember where I wrote this, but I wrote it somewhere in like a headline or a summary or something. But like Gordon Hayward is synonymous with Butler basketball. Like, people will remember him like Stephen Curry at Davidson because of those deep NCAA tournament runs to the Final Four. Speaking of Stephen Curry, like, this is a trend that is happening across college basketball. Like, these famous alums are helping out their programs. And I know you touched on it. I think Trae Young's involved at Oklahoma as well. I forget what Curry's role at Davidson is, but like, these guys are getting involved at their alma maters, which I think is cool. It's a cool development for everything that is going on in the college sports landscape right now that people love to hate. Like, I think this is something that everyone can get behind.
Yeah, and Grant kind of alluded to this as well, and I've talk to the players about it. It's kind of a pro kind of model. It's a shift towards, or them embracing a shift towards becoming a pro program. A lot of these kids, their goal is to play, overseas or in the NBA. So, to have Gordon there and just kind of embrace or help them become pros is something they don't have to shy away from now, because they are, technically getting paid through NIL, so they can embrace that side of the game. And yeah, I think Steph Curry is like the assistant general manager, which is a huge title to have. And Gordon is more of an advisory role. But again, any way that he can help, he's a valuable resource for Butler to have. So it's great that they're embracing what he can do and bring to the program.
Yeah, and wanting to be involved and available to the players. I think I don't care. I'm an objective person when it comes to watching these teams that we cover, but like, I hope the players lean into that and actually take him up on it, because it seems genuine. Like if you have someone who had that long of an NBA career and is one of the programs, or is the program's biggest star, like, lean into that, man. Like, that is a great opportunity and resource that you can use even beyond your Butler career. Yeah. Speaking of pros, Butler has another one. Jahmyl Telfort.
Yeah, I mean, Jahmyl, he took the hard route to the NBA, just kind of starting in the offseason through the Portsmouth Invitational. Wasn't invited to the I don't believe he was invited. He did some combine workouts, but not. He goes undrafted, signs with the Clippers. Sorry, plays in the summer league, and now has a 2-way contract with the Clippers. So he's he'll be playing probably majority for the San Diego Clippers, but he's just a phone call away from debuting in the NBA and being the next kind of pro dog, as they say, hashtag pro dogs, Butler alum to make it to the NBA. And I just think that's such a testament to Jahmyl, just his hard work. I mean, he's a grinder. He's another guy, under recruited coming out of Montreal, and just played 3 years at Northeastern before playing 2 years at Butler. And that's that's Maurice Joseph, another Canadian, his ties to Canada, helping bring him to Butler. The same with Ifosa. So shout out to Mojo and his ability to recruit and identify talent. And just in Jahmyl, he's not a knockdown shooter, but he has a pro skill set. He had a pro body from the second he walked onto Butler's campus. He can handle the ball. He's a reliable defender, a high IQ basketball player. So I could see why, as one of the last men on the bench, so that's a valuable asset to have. And if he can continue to progress, through the G League and show what he can do, and on a Clippers team that I don't think they're, definitely not fighting for an NBA championship, maybe he's finds himself playing, becoming a role player later in the season. So again, just seeing that and again, knowing that becoming a pro is kind of a goal for a lot of the players, and seeing that they can do that from a Butler, that's just a win for the program as a whole.
Yeah, and you never know how those seasons go either. Like an 82-game season is pretty grueling with all the travel, the back-to-backs. Injuries happen all the time. And so you're just a few injuries away from exhausting your time as a two-way player and getting signed to a rest of season contract. So like that's really cool. And you get to see people who Jahmyl in this case, you get to see someone who has worked so hard for this opportunity and put themselves in the best position possible for this. And that's one of the cool parts that maybe we don't recognize enough, is how difficult it is to get that opportunity. And so, yeah, congratulations to Jahmyl. That's super cool. Look forward to following him as his career progresses. As for Butler, they return to the court a week from Wednesday, depending on when you're listening to this. So I'll give you the date, October 29th. They're back at Hinkle against Indiana State. One of the things that I thought was interesting between these two exhibitions is you've got the big ACC team that has a lot of length and a lot of athleticism. Indiana State, hypothetically, is down a level in terms of talent. The Big East is a better conference metrically than the Missouri Valley, although not by a ton. I think the Big East is usually like the 5th, and then the Missouri Valley is hanging anywhere from 8 to 11. Anyway, what do you want to see this team? What do you want to see from this Butler team when they take the floor against Indiana State? What are the things that they need to come away with having improved upon that night?
And there'll be no Missouri Valley slander on this podcast with two Missouri Valley alums. With my SIU Slookies and your Bradley. Don't know their mascot, but
they're the Braves. It's okay.
Okay. Well, so I just think the offense needs to show a little bit more cohesion. Just get into their sets early and just generate positive or quality looks at the basket. And they, like Thad said, they were sped up. They were rushed. There's probably I know there was a lot of adrenaline pumping through. Just looking at the warm-ups, I was like, do they know this is an exhibition? They're definitely I could sense some nerves, maybe some tired legs by the time they took the court, because they were kind of, you don't really see a lot of the pregame dunks that were happening. I was like, okay, these guys are a little amped up. They need to take their foot off the gas a little bit. So I think now that they have the routine, they know, what the warm-ups will look like. They'll know what it feels like to take the court in front of that crowd. Maybe they'll allow them to kind of, not have a long adjustment period at the beginning of the game. And again, just to look cleaner and just to look more kind of cohesive and just generate positive looks. Because Indiana State, I expect them to give them a good game. It's not a team that you can just kind of look past. So I think it'll be another quality learning opportunity for them, especially if they can build on what they showed against Notre Dame. And I'd love to hear. That's kind of when I go to practice. I just want to know what this film session was like. Like, it's one thing to do it in practice and kind of going against your teammate, but to see it, on film and to hear, feedback from the coaches, I'm curious to see what they thought of their performance and how they can build on that. So this is a learning opportunity, and I'm excited to see. I'm hoping to see improvement when they take the floor against Indiana State.
Hey, Akeem, did you know Larry Bird went to Indiana State?
Yes, I did.
That is my favorite. Because I watch so much Missouri Valley basketball. That is my favorite sarcastic reply anytime Indiana State's playing. So sorry, Sycamores fans, but it gets tired after a while. No, I think, Thad mentioned two things post game that I think are kind of going to be his sticking points. One of them is how much Notre Dame clogged the paint. Like, as he said, all five guys, and they're much longer and taller than what Butler was maybe used to seeing. So I'm curious to see how they attack that differently. If Indiana State kind of has similar defensive principles. So I'm curious with that, but also defensively, like, Notre Dame shot the ball really well from 3-point range. And it was like guys who, again, I don't know how you scout for an exhibition when you know everybody's playing. Like Micah Shrewsbury was like, well, we didn't go track down the tape of every player because they were all at different schools. And so, like, I don't know how you scout or if you scout for something like that, but it's like Cole Serta is a certified shooter, and they just like never got out on him. So I'm curious to see how they defend the 3-point line differently in this game. And also just like, do they play more controlled, not as sped up in the first half like they did? Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest two things for me. There was something else, but it must not have been important if I can't remember it. But yeah, so they play at Hinkle Wednesday night, October 29th, and then they come back just a few days later on November 5th with their, I guess a week later, with their regular season opener against Southern Indiana. Our plan is to, I think, podcast after the Indiana State exhibition, and then again before, maybe preview the season a little bit more when we have some more, I guess, data points or eyes on this team before the season really tips off in earnest. Anything else you got that you didn't get in but want to?
No, I think that's about it. Just a little bit of time off not time off, but a little bit of time away from from Hinkle before the Indiana State game. Just want to keep learning as much about this team as I can, and I'm ready for the regular season to start.
Yeah, me too. It's also crazy that on October 17th we were playing college basketball. I was not prepared for that, but man, it was fun to be inside Hinkle for that. But yeah, we'll keep you posted. We appreciate everyone who's listened, especially if you've listened this far. You can find all of our work at IndyStar.com. Follow Akeem on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at the Akeem Glaspie. And yeah, please share this podcast wherever you get your podcast with your friends. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
See you later.